At 10:30 on a Saturday morning, every sound in Riverside Cafe stopped. Forks froze mid-air. Coffee stopped pouring. Conversations died mid-sentence. Because the man walking through that door was impossible. He wore a charcoal suit that cost more than most people made in a year. Two assistants in sharp suits flanked him. Security stood behind them. Every head in the packed diner turned in perfect unison. A customer whispered, "That's Arthur Brennan, the billionaire." LaShonda Hayes stood at table 7, holding a coffee pot, her body frozen. 24 hours earlier, she'd given this stranger her only coat in a blizzard. She'd walked him 15 blocks through sub-zero temperatures. Then she'd gone home alone, shivering, certain she'd never see him again. She was wrong. What happened next didn't just change her life. It changed an entire neighborhood. But first, she had to survive the worst night of her life. Friday morning, 5:30 a.m. LaShonda Hayes had exactly $163 to her name. In 3 days, her rent was due. She needed $420. The alarm clock rattled on the milk crate beside her mattress. She slapped it silent and stared at the cracked ceiling of her studio apartment. The radiator clanged but produced no heat. Her breath made small clouds in the cold air. She pulled herself up, wrapped a thin blanket around her shoulders, and shuffled to the corner that served as her kitchen. One hot plate. A plastic electric kettle with a frayed cord she'd taped together 3 times. The instant coffee jar was nearly empty. She'd been stretching the same grounds for 3 days now, adding just a pinch of fresh to the used ones. The coffee tasted like brown water, but it was warm. She poured a small amount of oatmeal into a bowl, half a serving. She'd eat the rest tomorrow. While the oatmeal cooked, she examined her work shoes. The sole had separated from the leather on the right one. She grabbed the duct tape from under the sink and wrapped it carefully around the shoe, pressing hard to make it stick. These shoes had to last another month. She couldn't afford new ones. LaShonda stood in front of the cracked mirror by the door and practiced her smile. Waitresses who smiled earned better tips. She'd read that somewhere, and in her 2 years at Riverside Cafe, she'd found it to be true. Her reflection looked tired. Gray hairs were coming in at her temples. She was only 34, but life had a way of aging you fast. She pulled her hair back into a neat ponytail and reached for the coat hanging on the hook. The burgundy wool coat. Her mother's coat. LaShonda ran her fingers over the fabric. Real wool, with a satin lining that still held the faintest scent of her mother's perfume. White diamonds. Cheap drugstore perfume, but to LaShonda, it smelled like home. Her mother had died 2 years ago. Breast cancer. Stage 4 by the time they caught it. The hospital bills had been crushing. LaShonda had worked double shifts for 18 months to pay them off. She'd sold everything, her mother's furniture, her jewelry, her car, everything except this coat. This coat was all she had left. She put it on carefully, buttoning it against the cold, and headed out into the pre-dawn darkness. The bus ride to work required 2 transfers. LaShonda couldn't afford the direct route. It cost an extra $1.50 each way. $3 a day added up over a month. She sat by the window and watched the city change as the bus moved through different neighborhoods. First, the rundown apartment complexes like hers. Then the gentrified blocks with coffee shops that charged $6 for a latte. Finally, the tree-lined streets with brownstones that cost more than she'd earn in a lifetime. A woman in a camel hair coat sat across from her, scrolling through her phone. The coat looked soft, expensive, probably cashmere. LaShonda did the math automatically. That coat cost more than 3 months of her wages. She looked away and noticed the community center passing by her window. She volunteered there on Sundays, teaching kids to read. It was the one thing she did that had nothing to do with money or survival. It was the thing that made her feel like her mother's daughter. As the bus turned onto Market Street, she saw Mrs. Lane's apartment building. Another eviction notice on the door, the 3rd one on her floor this month. Rent was going up everywhere. Landlords were selling to developers. People were being pushed out. LaShonda knew she might be next. Riverside Cafe sat on the corner of Market and Ninth, a neighborhood institution for 40 years. The vinyl booths were patched with duct tape. The floors were scuffed. The neon sign out front flickered on the second E in cafe. But it was clean. The food was good. And the people were family. Dimitri Paulos, the owner, was already in the kitchen when Lashonda arrived. He was 67, a Greek immigrant who'd bought the place in 1985 with his life savings. She hung her coat in the small staff closet and called out, "Morning, Dimitri." "Morning, Koritsimu," he replied, his accent still thick after 40 years in America. "You look tired." "I'm fine." She wasn't fine. But Dimitri had his own problems. In her locker, Lashonda kept a small photograph taped to the inside of the door. Her and her mother at her high school graduation, 15 years ago. They were both wearing the burgundy coat in the picture, squeezed together to fit in the frame, laughing. Her mother's arm was around her shoulders. Her smile was wide and proud. Lashonda touched the photo gently, then closed the locker. She tied on her apron, clipped on her name tag, scratched and faded from years of washing, and headed to the floor. Maria Rodriguez was already setting up tables. Single mother of 2, worked the morning shift so she could pick her kids up from school. She and Lashonda had become close over the years. "Girl, you look exhausted," Maria said. "Didn't sleep great." "Have you ever slept great?" Lashonda smiled. "Not lately." Tommy Bennett came through the back door, still half asleep. 19 years old, community college student, working his way through school one breakfast shift at a time. Lashonda had taken him under her wing when he started 6 months ago, taught him how to balance plates, how to read customers, how to smile even when you wanted to scream. The morning rush started at 7. Lashonda knew every regular's order by heart. "Mr. Patterson, 2 eggs over easy, white toast, coffee black. Mrs. Williams, oatmeal with brown sugar, hot tea. The construction crew from the site down the block. 6 orders of the breakfast special, extra hash browns." She moved through the routine on autopilot, her mind running numbers. Rent, $420. Current money, $163. Shortfall, $257. If she got good tips today and tomorrow, worked a double on Sunday, maybe she could cover it. Maybe. At 11:30, during a brief lull, Dimitri called her into the kitchen. His face was drawn, worried. "Lashonda, I need to tell you something," he said quietly. "But not today, tomorrow. I'm having a meeting with the staff tomorrow morning." Her stomach dropped. "Dimitri, what's wrong?" "Tomorrow," he said. "I promise." A customer called for more coffee. Lashonda grabbed the pot and headed back to the floor, Dimitri's worried face lingering in her mind. She thought Friday night would be quiet. She thought she'd close up, catch the last bus home, and wake up to another day of barely surviving. She had no idea that in 9 hours everything would change. At 9:47 p.m., the blizzard warning flashed across every phone in the diner. By 10:15, the streets were empty, except for one man. The dinner rush had been steady, but not great. Tips were lower than Lashonda hoped. She'd made $63, still not enough. The TV mounted in the corner showed the weather forecast. A major winter storm was moving in faster than predicted. The meteorologist pointed to the radar, her face serious. "Temperatures will drop to 12 degrees Fahrenheit within the hour. Wind chill will push it below 0. Authorities urge everyone to seek shelter immediately. Exposure can cause hypothermia in under 20 minutes. Customers started asking for checks. Maria wiped down her last table and grabbed her coat. "Lashonda, I gotta go. Babysitter just texted. She's freaking out about getting home." "Go," Lashonda said. "I'll close." "You sure?" "I need the extra hour anyway." Every hour meant another $12. Maria squeezed her arm. "Be safe, okay? Last bus is at 11:30. By 10:30, the last customer had left. Wind rattled the windows. Ice formed in the corners of the glass. LaShonda could see snow coming down in thick sheets, streetlights barely visible. Dimitri had left her the keys with strict instructions. Lock up by midnight. Be careful going home. She started closing. Wipe tables, stack chairs, count the register, sweep. She'd done this hundreds of times. The radiator clanked, fighting to keep the old building warm. Outside, the wind screamed. LaShonda glanced at the clock. 10:43 p.m. She could finish by 11:15, catch the last bus with time to spare. Then she saw him. Through the frosted window, a figure moved on the sidewalk. LaShonda stopped sweeping and walked closer. A man. Older, maybe 70. White with silver hair. He wore wool slacks and a thin cardigan sweater, leather dress shoes. No coat, no hat, no gloves. He stood in the middle of the sidewalk, turning in slow circles like he was looking for something. His shoulders hunched against the wind. Even from inside, she could see him shivering. She watched, her hand on the broom. He wasn't asking to come in, wasn't knocking. Just standing there, patting his pockets over and over, his face confused. The wind picked up. Snow swirled around him. He stumbled, caught himself. LaShonda looked at the clock. 10:47 p.m. 43 minutes until the last bus. She should finish and go. This wasn't her problem. But her mother's voice echoed in her head. "Baby, we don't have much, but we have enough to share." LaShonda set down the broom. She walked to the door and tapped on the glass. The old man turned, squinting through the snow. She gestured for him to come inside. He hesitated, then slowly made his way to the door. She unlocked it and pulled it open. Arctic air hit her face. The man stumbled inside. She quickly locked the door behind him. Up close, she could see how bad it was. His lips had a bluish tint. His hands shook violently. His thin cardigan was dusted with snow, already melting. He looked disoriented, eyes unfocused. "Sir, are you okay?" LaShonda guided him to the nearest booth. "Sit down. Let me get you some coffee." He sank into the seat, trembling. LaShonda rushed behind the counter and poured hot coffee. She brought it with sugar packets and creamer. "Here, drink this. Slowly." His hands shook so badly he could barely hold the cup. She steadied it, helping him bring it to his lips. He took a small sip, then another. Slowly, color started returning to his face. "Thank you," he said, voice hoarse. "I seem to have gotten turned around. Where are you trying to go?" He looked at her blankly. "I'm not entirely sure. I was walking and then—" He trailed off, brow furrowed. "I can't quite remember." LaShonda pulled out her phone. "Do you have someone I can call?" He patted his pockets. "I don't have my phone. I don't—" He looked at his hands like they belonged to someone else. "I don't know where my wallet is." She dialed 911. The dispatcher answered after 4 rings. 911, what's your emergency?" "I have an elderly man who seems disoriented. He's been outside in the cold." "What's your location?" "Riverside Cafe, Market and 9th. Typing on the other end. "Ma'am, we're experiencing high call volume due to the weather. All units are responding to emergencies. Wait time is approximately 2 hours. 2 hours? Keep him warm. We'll get someone there as soon as possible." The line clicked off. LaShonda called the nearest shelter. Full. Another shelter. Also full. She looked at the old man. He was warming up, but still looked fragile, lost. She noticed his watch. Expensive. Swiss-made, leather band worn soft from years. On his right hand, a signet ring with an intricate crest. His cardigan was thin but high quality. Cashmere, maybe. This was a man who had money, who had a home somewhere. But right now, he had nothing. "Do you know where you live?" she asked gently. He closed his eyes, concentrating. East, I think. A few blocks east? LaShonda knew that neighborhood. Brownstones, wealthy families. In good weather, 15 minutes. In this blizzard, it is impossible. Her phone buzzed. 11:14 p.m. Last bus in 16 minutes. She looked at the coat hanging by the door, her mother's burgundy wool coat. Then she looked at him. What LaShonda did next broke every rule of self-preservation she'd ever learned. But some things matter more than survival. She stared at the coat on the hook. 3 miles home, 12 degrees. Wind chill below zero. She was already fighting off a cold. If she got sick, she'd miss work. If she missed work, she'd lose everything. But this man was 70 years old, frail, confused. He wouldn't last 20 minutes out there. LaShonda walked to the kitchen and found crackers and soup packets. She heated water and brought him instant chicken noodle soup. He wrapped his shaking hands around it gratefully. "What's your name?" she asked, sitting across from him. "Arthur." He said it slowly, like making sure it was correct. "I'm LaShonda. LaShonda Hayes." "Miss Hayes." He met her eyes. Even confused, there was clarity in his gaze, a dignity. "I won't forget this. I won't forget you." Something about the way he said it made her pause. It wasn't just gratitude. It sounded like a promise. She glanced at the clock. 11:19 p.m. 11 minutes until the last bus. "Arthur, I need to get you somewhere safe. Do you remember your address?" He frowned, concentrating. "Brownstone. Red door. There's a gate. Iron gate. That's the neighborhood east of here. Can you make it if I help you?" He started to stand, wobbled. She caught his arm. "I can try." LaShonda looked at him. Really looked. In his expensive watch and cashmere cardigan, shivering in her worn booth. She thought about her mother. Diane Hayes had been a nurse for 23 years, worked double shifts, stayed late with patients who had no one, gave her lunch to families who couldn't afford the cafeteria. "We don't have much, baby, but we have enough to share." LaShonda stood and walked to the coat hook. She took down the burgundy wool coat. The weight felt heavier than usual. She brought it to her face and breathed in, the faint scent of White Diamond's perfume. Her mother's scent. This coat had kept her mother warm through 20 winters, had wrapped around LaShonda at her high school graduation, had been the backdrop of 1,000 memories. It was all she had left. She walked back to Arthur and draped it over his shoulders. "Wait," he said. "I can't take your coat." "Yes, you can." She buttoned it for him, fingers moving quickly. "This was my mama's. It's warm, real wool. But you'll freeze. I'm young. I move fast. I'll be fine." She wasn't sure that was true, but she said it anyway. She grabbed her thin apron from behind the counter and tied it around her waist for an extra layer, pulled up the hood of her work uniform. It wasn't much, but it was something. Arthur stood slowly, the coat hanging large on his thin frame. She grabbed his arm. "Come on. Let's get you home." The moment she opened the door, the cold hit like a physical blow. Wind sliced through her uniform. Ice pellets stung her face. She gasped, and frigid air burned her lungs. Arthur stumbled on the first step. She caught him, steadied him. "Slow and steady. Just lean on me." They moved into the storm. Within seconds, LaShonda couldn't feel her hands. The wind screamed. Visibility dropped to almost nothing. She could barely see 10 feet ahead. She locked her arm through Arthur's and pulled him close. He moved slowly, each step deliberate. She matched his pace, even though every instinct screamed at her to run. The cold was brutal. It found every gap in her clothes. Her uniform dress froze against her legs. Her feet went numb in her duct-taped shoes. She started shivering violently. "East," she muttered. "Just keep going east." Arthur's weight pressed against her. They passed a closed bodega, a dark laundromat. Everything was shut down against the storm. "I'm sorry," Arthur said, words barely audible. "I'm slowing you down." "Don't be sorry. Just keep moving." Her teeth chattered so hard she could barely speak. The cold was worse than she'd imagined. Her lungs burned. Ice formed on her eyelashes. They'd been walking for 10 minutes. It felt like an hour. "Tell me about yourself," Arthur said suddenly. "Not much to tell. I work at the diner. Volunteer on Sundays. That's about it." "The coat. You said it was your mother's?" "Yeah. She died 2 years ago. Cancer." "I'm sorry." She was a nurse. Worked at Jefferson Memorial for 23 years. She loved taking care of people. LaShonda didn't know why she was telling him this. Maybe talking kept her mind off the cold. Maybe she needed to remember why she was doing this. "She sounds like a remarkable woman," Arthur said. She was. They turned a corner, and the wind hit them full force. LaShonda's legs almost gave out. She grabbed a lamppost to steady herself. Arthur held on to her. "How much farther?" "I think 2 more blocks." 2 blocks. She could do 2 blocks. They pushed forward. LaShonda's whole body shook. Her fingers were completely numb. She couldn't feel her toes. The cold had seeped into her bones, but Arthur was still moving, still breathing. The coat was keeping him alive. Finally, she saw them. The brownstones. Beautiful historic homes with pristine stoops and ornate railings. Even through the snow, she could see the difference. This was old money. Real wealth. "Which one?" she shouted. Arthur pointed halfway down the block. Red door, iron gate, just like he'd said. They stumbled up to it. Arthur fumbled at the security panel, fingers too cold to work. LaShonda helped him, pressing the buttons he indicated. The gate buzzed and clicked open. Warm light spilled from the windows. Beautiful furniture inside. Artwork on the walls. This house was worth more than she'd make in 10 lifetimes. "I can get in from here," Arthur said. He started to take off the coat. "Please, take this back." "No." LaShonda backed away. "Keep it. Get inside. Get warm. Promise me you'll stay inside." "How can I repay you? Let me at least call you a car." "No need. Just pay it forward someday. Help someone else." "Wait. I don't even know your last name. How can I find you?" "It's better this way. Just be safe, okay?" She turned and started walking before he could protest, before she could change her mind. The walk home was the longest 3 miles of her life. Without the coat, the cold was merciless. She ran when she could, but her legs were weak. She ducked into doorways when the wind got too strong. Wrapped her arms around herself, thought about her mother. "You did right, baby." Her mother's voice, clear as day. "You did right." By the time she reached her apartment, it was past midnight. She was hypothermic, shaking uncontrollably. Her lips were blue. She could barely get her key in the lock. She stumbled inside and went straight to the shower, turned it as hot as she could stand, and sat under it fully clothed until the shaking stopped. She made the last packet of hot cocoa, wrapped herself in every blanket she owned, crawled into bed. Her last thought before sleep was simple. "I hope he's okay. I hope that coat keeps him warm." She didn't think she'd ever see him again. She was wrong. But first, everything had to fall apart. Saturday, 6:00 a.m. LaShonda woke to 3 missed calls and a text. "Emergency. Need you at diner now. Dimitri." Her head pounded. Her throat felt like sandpaper. Every muscle ached. She tried to sit up and immediately started coughing. Deep, rattling coughs that shook her chest. Fever. She had a fever. She checked her phone. 8 degrees outside. The blizzard had passed, but the cold remained. LaShonda dragged herself to the bathroom. Her reflection looked terrible. Dark circles, pale skin. She touched her forehead. Burning hot. She opened the medicine cabinet. 2 Tylenol left. She couldn't afford more until payday. She swallowed them dry and leaned against the sink, waiting for the room to stop spinning. Her phone buzzed. Dmitri. Please hurry. Important. She looked at the empty hook where her coat should be. The apartment felt colder without it. She went to the donation bin in her building and found a threadbare gray hoodie. It smelled like mothballs, but it was better than nothing. The bus ride felt endless. Lashonda kept her eyes closed, trying not to throw up. Her body alternated between chills and sweats. She should be home in bed. But Dmitri sounded desperate. When she walked into Riverside Cafe at 7:15 a.m., Dmitri sat at a corner booth with papers spread across the table. His head was in his hands. Maria was there too, eyes red. Lashonda's heart sank. What's going on? Dmitri looked up. His face was drawn, aged 10 years overnight. Sit down. She slid into the booth. Maria squeezed her hand. Dmitri pushed a document toward her. Official letterhead. Legal language. The building's been sold. New owner is tripling the rent starting next month. Lashonda's head snapped up. Tripling? Or we can buy the building. $480,000. 30 days to decide. The number hung in the air like a death sentence. I went to 3 banks yesterday, Dmitri continued. They all said no. My credit's not good enough. I'm too old. The neighborhood's too risky. He laughed bitterly. 40 years here. And now it's over. Maria wiped her eyes. I started looking for other jobs. Nothing has hours like this. Nothing lets me pick up my kids. Lashonda felt the room tilt. Not the diner. Not their home. What about Tommy? She asked. I called him this morning. Told him to start looking too. They sat in silence. Outside, people walked past bundled in warm coats, life going on like normal while their world fell apart. If you know anyone, Dmitri said, anyone with money, anyone who might invest. She thought of Arthur, the expensive watch, the brownstone. He clearly had money, but she had no way to contact him, didn't even know his last name. And even if she could, she wouldn't ask. That wasn't why she'd helped him. I don't know anyone like that, she said quietly. Dmitri nodded. I didn't think so, but I had to ask. They'd all start looking for new jobs. Give it 1 month. Hope for a miracle that wouldn't come. Lashonda worked her shift in a fog. The fever made everything feel distant. She kept coughing, had to step into the back. By noon, Dmitri sent her home. You're sick. Go rest. She took the bus back and crawled into bed, slept through Saturday and all day Sunday. Monday morning, there was a notice under her door. Eviction warning. Pay full rent by Friday or proceedings would begin. She counted her money. $163 total. She needed $420, short by $257. Even working every shift this week, she wouldn't make it. Lashonda sat on her mattress and did the math. No matter how she calculated it, the numbers didn't work. The diner was closing. She was getting evicted. She was sick and couldn't afford medicine. Should she have kept the coat? Asked Arthur for help? No. She'd made the right choice. Her mother would have done the same. But knowing you did the right thing didn't keep you warm, didn't pay rent, didn't save your job. Tuesday morning, Lashonda dragged herself back to work. Maria burst through the kitchen doors at 9:15 a.m., phone in hand, eyes wide. Lashonda, you need to see this. Maria shoved her phone in Lashonda's face. A news article from Saturday morning filled the screen. Headline, City Philanthropist Arthur Brennan found safe after blizzard disappearance. Lashonda's breath caught. There was a photo. The old man. Her old man. But he looked completely different. Professional headshot. Confident smile. Expensive suit. That's him, she whispered. That's him? Maria's voice rose. Do you know who he is? LaShonda scanned the article. Arthur Brennan, 72, prominent investor and philanthropist, went missing Friday evening during a medical episode related to early Alzheimer's, wandered from his residence, found safe at home around 11 p.m. Family statement. We are grateful to the anonymous Good Samaritan who helped Mr. Brennan. The article continued. Brennan is reportedly searching for the person who assisted him to express his gratitude. LaShonda. Maria grabbed her shoulders. Arthur Brennan. He's worth like $500 million. $500 million. The number didn't seem real. I just wanted him to get home safe, LaShonda said. And you gave him your mom's coat? He needed it more than me. Maria stared at her. Girl, he could have bought you 100 coats. That's not why I did it. Tommy appeared from the kitchen. Yo, some lady came in yesterday asking about you. LaShonda's stomach dropped. What? Professional woman. Suit, briefcase. Asked Dimitri about the night shift waitress from Friday. He didn't give your name. She left a business card, but he can't find it now. LaShonda felt uneasy. He didn't tell her anything? Just that someone closed that night. That's it. Wednesday, Tommy mentioned something else. That black town car is still out there. What car? Parked across the street. Been there since Tuesday. Driver just sits there. Maria walked to the window. That's weird. LaShonda's anxiety grew. What if they found her? What if they made a big deal? What if people thought she'd done it for a reward? She didn't want attention. Didn't want charity. Her pride was all she had left. Thursday morning, she found a package on the diner doorstep. Brown paper tied with string. Her name on top. LaShonda Hayes. She brought it inside and opened it carefully. Her mother's coat. Professionally dry cleaned. The small tear she'd forgotten about was invisibly mended. Tucked in the pocket was a handwritten note on cream stationery. I believe this belongs to you. I haven't forgotten. A.B. And a business card. Arthur C. Brennan, Brennan Capital Partners, with a phone number handwritten on the back. LaShonda held the coat to her face. Underneath the dry cleaner's chemicals, faintly, her mother's perfume remained. She was still holding the card when, at 10:30 a.m., a black town car pulled up outside. Two people in suits stepped out and walked toward the door. Every conversation in Riverside Cafe died mid-sentence. Forks froze. Heads turned in perfect unison, because Arthur Brennan had just walked in. The breakfast rush was in full swing. Every booth was packed. Regulars lined the counter, Tommy juggling 3 tables, Maria pouring coffee, LaShonda taking an order at table 7 when the door opened, and time stopped. Arthur Brennan stepped through the doorway, but this wasn't the confused old man from Friday night. This was someone else entirely. He wore an impeccable charcoal suit. His silver hair was perfectly styled. His posture is straight, commanding. The transformation was shocking. Behind him, a woman in a sharp navy suit carrying a briefcase. A man in glasses and an expensive tie. Both radiated polished authority. The diner went silent. Not gradually. Instantly. Like someone hit mute on the entire room. Mr. Patterson's fork stopped halfway to his mouth. Mrs. Williams' coffee cup hovered mid-air. The construction crew froze mid-conversation. Every single person turned to look. A customer whispered, "That's Arthur Brennan." Another, "Brennan? What's he doing here?" LaShonda stood frozen, coffee pot in hand. Her heart hammered. Arthur's eyes scanned the room and found her. Recognition flashed across his face. He started walking toward her. Every eye tracked his movement. LaShonda could feel the weight of their stares. She wanted to disappear, but her feet wouldn't move. Phones came out. Customers started recording. Dimitri emerged from the kitchen, dish towel in hand. His mouth fell open. Maria's hand went to her chest. Arthur stopped at LaShonda's table. The customers she'd been serving stared up at him, then at her, fascinated. "Miss Hayes," Arthur said. His voice was clear, strong, nothing like Friday night. "I've been looking for you." LaShonda's mouth was dry. "Sir, you don't need to—" "Yes, I do." Arthur turned to address the entire diner. His voice carried to every corner. "Everyone here should know what this woman did." The room leaned in, phones held higher. "Friday night, during the blizzard, I had a medical episode. I wandered from my home confused and disoriented. I was outside in sub-zero temperatures without a coat. I would have died from exposure." You could hear a pin drop. "This woman invited me into this diner, gave me hot coffee, warmed me up. Then she gave me her only coat, her mother's coat, the only valuable thing she owned." LaShonda felt tears prickling her eyes. This was too much, too public. "She walked me 15 blocks through the blizzard to my home. Then I walked home alone, freezing, with no coat. She asked for nothing, refused everything, just told me to pay it forward." The diner was utterly silent. Mrs. Williams wiped her eyes. Mr. Patterson set down his fork. Arthur turned back to LaShonda. "I'd like to speak with you. It's important." Dimitri stepped forward. "LaShonda, you don't have to—" "It's okay, Dimitri." LaShonda's voice barely above a whisper. Arthur looked at her. "Would you prefer to speak privately?" LaShonda glanced around. At Maria, tears streaming. At Dimitri, concerned. At Tommy, holding his phone up, recording. At the regulars who'd become family. "Whatever you need to say, you can say it here. These are my people." The woman and man in suits exchanged a glance. Something like respect flickered across their faces. Arthur nodded. "Very well." He gestured to the woman. "This is Catherine Morrison, my chief operating officer, and David Carter, my attorney." Catherine stepped forward, opening her briefcase. She pulled out a tablet. "Miss Hayes, may I ask something personal? Your mother's name was Diane Hayes, correct?" LaShonda tensed. "How do you know that?" "She worked as a nurse at Jefferson Memorial Hospital?" "Yes, for 23 years. Why?" Catherine turned the tablet toward her. Old photographs filled the screen. LaShonda's breath caught. Her mother, young, in scrubs, smiling. "What is this?" LaShonda whispered. Arthur's voice softened. 28 years ago, my son Michael was 7 years old. He had leukemia, acute lymphoblastic leukemia, stage 3. He paused, emotion flickering across his face. Your mother was his primary nurse. She worked double shifts to be there for him. She stayed late when he was scared. She fought for him when his treatment got complicated. Catherine swiped through more photos. Young Diane holding a sick child's hand. Diane beside a hospital bed. Diane with her arm around a bald little boy. LaShonda's hands started shaking. Michael survived, Arthur said. He's 35 now. A pediatric oncologist. He saves children's lives because your mother saved his. The diner was so quiet, LaShonda could hear her own heartbeat. I tried to thank your mother back then. I endowed a nursing scholarship in her name at the hospital, but she'd moved to another facility. I lost touch. I never got to properly thank her. He looked directly into LaShonda's eyes. Friday night during my episode, I was walking toward where the old hospital used to be. In my confused state, I was trying to find her. The nurse who saved my son. I was looking for Diane Hayes. LaShonda couldn't breathe. And her daughter found me instead. Arthur's voice cracked slightly. Your mother saved my son's life 28 years ago. You saved mine Friday. The universe brought us full circle. A sob escaped from somewhere in the diner. Maria crying openly. Dimitri had his hand over his mouth. Mrs. Williams hugging Mr. Patterson, Tommy's phone shaking as he recorded. LaShonda felt tears streaming down her face. I didn't know. I didn't know any of this. That's what makes it extraordinary, Catherine said gently. You helped him because that's who you are, because that's who your mother raised. Arthur pulled out an old photograph. He handed it to LaShonda. It showed her mother beside a hospital bed. A little boy with no hair smiled up at her. In the corner, pen handwriting. Diane Hayes, R.N. Michael's Angel. LaShonda clutched the photo, shoulders shaking. I promised you Friday night I wouldn't forget, Arthur said. I meant it. Now I'd like to do something meaningful. Not just a thank you. Something that honors both you and your mother's legacy. He looked around the diner at all the watching faces, at the phones recording, at the community bearing witness. What I'm about to offer will change more than just your life, Miss Hayes. It will change this entire neighborhood. Arthur Brennan pulled out a folder. Inside were documents that would save everything LaShonda was about to lose. I hope you don't mind, Arthur said, but I've done some research, public records, and I visited this cafe yesterday. LaShonda tensed. Dimitri's eyes widened. I spoke with Mr. Paulus. I learned about the building situation, the impending closure. Dimitri's face went pale. Mr. Brennan, Arthur held up a hand. I also learned this diner has been a neighborhood institution for 40 years. That you're a good man who treats employees like family. That this place matters. He turned to address the room. Customers leaned forward, phones still recording. I have 3 proposals. The first concerns this establishment. Catherine opened the folder and pulled out a document. Brennan Capital Partners will purchase this building and place it in a community trust. Mr. Paulus, you retain full operational control. No rent increase. Ever. Dimitri made a choking sound. What? Will fund necessary repairs, equipment upgrades, ADA compliance. This becomes a community cornerstone property, a model for preserving neighborhood businesses with cultural and social value. Dimitri's legs gave out. He sank into a chair. Maria rushed to his side. You're serious? Dimitri whispered. Completely, David Carter said. Paperwork ready by Monday. The diner erupted. Customers clapping, Tommy whooping, Maria crying and laughing. Arthur waited for quiet. The second proposal concerns education. Catherine pulled out another document. We're establishing the Diane Hayes Memorial Nursing Scholarship, a $5 million endowment providing 4 to 5 full-ride scholarships annually in perpetuity for underserved students pursuing nursing. LaShonda's knees went weak. She grabbed the table. My son Michael will sit on the selection board, Arthur said. Miss Hayes, you're welcome to participate if you wish. Catherine tapped her tablet. A video call connected. A man appeared. Early 30s, kind eyes, doctor's coat. Healthy, vibrant, alive. LaShonda, Michael Brennan said warmly. I wanted to meet the daughter of the woman who saved my life. LaShonda couldn't speak. Your mother sat with me when I was scared, read to me, made me laugh, fought for me when things got bad. I became a doctor because of her. I specialize in pediatric oncology because I want other kids to have what she gave me, a chance. Tears streamed down LaShonda's face. These scholarships will continue her legacy. Every nurse we help train will carry a piece of her forward. The diner was silent except for sniffling. Mrs. Williams had her hand over her heart. Arthur nodded to Catherine, who ended the call. There's more. We're announcing the first scholarship recipient today. He turned to Tommy, frozen with his phone. Tommy Bennett, you're enrolled at City Community College, working toward nursing, correct? Tommy's eyes went wide. Yes, sir. You work hard. You're dedicated. Miss Hayes speaks highly of you. You're exactly the kind of student this scholarship was created for. Catherine handed Tommy an envelope. Full tuition, books, and living stipend for your entire nursing program. Tommy opened it with shaking hands. He looked at the letter. His face crumpled. He started crying. LaShonda pulled him into a hug. The diner burst into applause, customers standing, clapping, cheering. Arthur raised his hand for quiet. "The third proposal is for you, Miss Hayes." LaShonda's heart pounded. "Mr. Brennan, you've already—" "Please, hear me out." She nodded. "I'm establishing a community impact investment program. We'll identify neighborhood businesses and organizations needing support, provide capital, mentorship, resources." He paused. "But I need someone who knows these communities from the inside, someone people trust, someone who understands both struggle and dignity." LaShonda felt the room spinning. "I'm offering you a position as Community Outreach Director. Identify worthy businesses and causes, make recommendations, build relationships, be the bridge between capital and community need." Catherine handed LaShonda a document. "Salary, $85,000 annually, plus full benefits. Health insurance, 401k, professional development." LaShonda stared at the number. $85,000. She currently made $22,000. "Additionally," David added, "we'll pay your rent in advance for 1 year. Eliminate immediate pressure." LaShonda's vision blurred. This wasn't real. "Why me?" she whispered. "I have no experience, no credentials. I'm just a waitress." Arthur's expression softened. "You're not just anything, Miss Hayes. You saw a confused old man who needed help. You didn't see a problem or opportunity. You saw a human being. That judgment, that compassion can't be taught." Catherine added, "You understand what our analysts miss. You see value others overlook." Michael's voice came from the tablet. "My dad's been trying to do meaningful philanthropy for 40 years. He needed someone who lived it, someone who gets it. That's you." LaShonda looked around. At Dimitri, saved from losing his life's work. Tommy, holding a scholarship that would change his future. At Maria, whose job was secure. At her community, watching with hope. "Can I ask something?" LaShonda said quietly. "Anything," Arthur replied. "Do I get to keep working at the diner sometimes? I don't want to lose this. These are my people." Arthur smiled genuinely. "As long as Dimitri will have you." Dimitri shouted through tears, "Always, always, Corissimo." LaShonda looked at the document, at the number that would change everything, at the chance to help others the way she'd been helped. She thought of her mother, of 23 years spent caring for others, of a legacy she'd never known existed. "Yes," LaShonda whispered. Then louder, "Yes, I accept." The diner exploded. Customers on their feet, applauding, cheering. Tommy live-streaming to thousands. Maria grabbed LaShonda and hugged her tight. On phones across the diner, notifications popped up. Tommy's video going viral. #kindness echoes trending. But LaShonda couldn't have known the real transformation was just beginning. 3 months later, Riverside Cafe looked the same from the outside. But step inside, and you'd feel the difference immediately. The grand reopening happened on a Saturday in early spring. The neighborhood packed in. Local news crews set up cameras. The mayor showed up for photos. The physical changes were subtle but meaningful. New kitchen equipment gleamed behind the counter, but Dimitri kept the vintage aesthetic. Old vinyl booths reupholstered in the same red pattern. Floors refinished but still showing their age. The neon sign repaired, both E's in Cafe, now worked. But the real difference wasn't what you could see. It was what you could feel. Dimitri moved through his kitchen with lightness that hadn't been there before. No more worry lines, no more sleepless nights calculating impossible numbers. He cooked with joy again. Maria was promoted to manager with real salary and benefits. She could finally afford reliable childcare. Her kids came in after school, doing homework in corner booths. Tommy balanced college with weekend shifts. The Diane Hayes Scholarship covered everything. He'd framed the scholarship letter and hung it in the break room. The Wall of Honor went up in March. Photographs covered an entire section near the entrance. Longtime staff, regular customers, neighborhood history spanning 40 years. At the center hung a photograph of Diane Hayes in nursing scrubs, young, vibrant, smiling. Below it, a plaque. Diane Hayes, RN, 1968-2023. She taught us that caring for others is the highest calling. Next to it, the scholarship article. And a candid photo from that December morning, Arthur and LaShonda in the diner. The moment everything changed. Arthur had become a regular. Every Tuesday morning at 8 a.m. 2 eggs over easy, white toast, coffee black. Read the paper. Chat with Dimitri about soccer. Ask Maria about her kids. Just another customer. Except everyone knew he'd saved their diner. LaShonda still worked Sunday brunch. Not because she needed to. Her new salary meant she could breathe, but because she wanted to. Because these people were family. Because pouring coffee and remembering orders grounded her. Her tips went into a jar behind the counter. The LaShonda Fund, Maria called it. When customers were short on cash or looked like they were struggling, their meal got paid for. No questions asked. The scholarship ceremony happened in late February at Jefferson Memorial Hospital. 5 students received the first Diane Hayes Memorial Scholarships. The auditorium was packed with families and press. LaShonda spoke, hands shaking at the podium. My mother believed everyone deserves dignity. Everyone deserves care. She lived that belief every day for 23 years. These scholarships aren't just financial aid. They're my mother's voice, still teaching, still healing, still changing lives. Michael Brennan presented each scholarship personally. He showed students the old photograph of young Diane holding his hand in his hospital bed. This woman saved my life. Now you'll save others. That's how kindness works. It never stops. It just keeps going. One recipient, Tamika Richards, 19 and a single mother, broke down crying. This doesn't just change my life. It changes my daughter's life. It changes what she thinks is possible. Tommy's original video had been viewed over 5 million times. #kindness. Echoes had become a movement. People across the country sharing stories of unexpected kindness, of strangers helping strangers, of small acts creating big ripples. LaShonda's work at Brennan Capital was thriving. In 3 months, she'd identified 12 struggling community businesses worth saving. Garcia's Bodega, family-owned for 35 years, now secured. Thompson Boxing Gym, keeping kids off streets, fully renovated. Lighthouse Community Center, after-school programs, funded for 3 years. She brought Arthur and Michael to these places, introduced them to real people with real stories, broke down barriers between capital and community. Catherine Morrison told Arthur privately, LaShonda's found more impactful investments in 3 months than our analysts found in 3 years. The local paper ran a profile. From waitress to changemaker, LaShonda Hayes' journey. But LaShonda stayed humble. When reporters asked for interviews, she redirected them. Talk to the business owners. Talk to the scholarship students. They're the real stories. The impact was real. 12 businesses were saved. 47 jobs preserved. Over 200 families directly helped. The scholarship fund, growing as additional donors, inspired by the story, contributed. Arthur's private reflection to Michael, I've been trying to do meaningful philanthropy for 40 years. She figured it out in 3 months because she lived it. She knows what matters. But the biggest change wasn't in the numbers or the headlines or the viral videos. It was what happened every Friday night at 9:47 p.m. 6 months to the day after LaShonda gave away her coat, the diner was packed. It was 9:47 p.m. on a Friday night, and she was about to start a new tradition. Dimitri rang the old service bell behind the counter. The sound cut through conversations. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for our coat check. Regulars knew what this meant. Newcomers looked curious. LaShonda walked to the wall near the entrance where a wooden coat rack had been mounted. 5 coats hung there. A hand-painted sign above read, "In memory of Diane Hayes. Take what you need. Leave what you can. No questions asked." Every Friday at 9:47 p.m., the exact time she'd helped Arthur, the community came together. People donated coats, scarves, gloves. Anyone who needed one could take one. Free. No judgment. "My mother's coat saved a life," LaShonda had said. "Let's keep that going." My. Tonight, an elderly black woman came through the door wearing a thin jacket. She hesitated near the entrance, eyes on the rack but uncertain. LaShonda recognized that look. She'd seen it in her own mirror 6 months ago. She selected a nice wool coat. Navy blue, good quality. "This one looks like it would fit you perfectly." The woman's eyes filled. "I can't pay." "No payment needed. It's yours." "God bless you, child." "Someone blessed me. I'm just passing it on." At his corner booth, Arthur Brennan sat with his son Michael. Their weekly Friday tradition. Tonight, Michael had brought his daughter, 5 years old, healthy, vibrant, coloring on a placemat. "Grandpa, tell me the story again." Arthur smiled. "Which story?" "The one about the nurse and the coat. A long time ago, when your daddy was very sick, there was a nurse named Diane. She took care of him every day, made him feel safe. And then? Your daddy got better, grew up to be a doctor." Michael continued. "Years later, Grandpa got lost in a snowstorm. Diane's daughter, LaShonda, found him. She gave him her coat to keep him warm." The little girl nodded. "And now you're all friends?" "That's right. And now we help lots of people, just like they helped us." LaShonda brought their dessert, pie on the house. Michael's daughter held up her drawing. Stick figures holding hands in a circle, hearts floating above, in crayon, "Kindness goes around." "That's beautiful," LaShonda said. "It's for you." LaShonda's throat tightened. "Thank you. I'm putting this somewhere special." She taped it to the wall of honor, next to her mother's photograph. At closing time, LaShonda stood alone in the quiet diner. She wore her mother's burgundy coat, cleaned, mended, returned. She ran her hand over the satin lining, breathed in the faint scent of white diamonds still lingering. "You'd be proud, Mama. It's all spreading. The kindness is spreading." Her phone buzzed. Text from Tamika. "Just finished my first week of clinical rotations. Thought of your mom. Thought of you. Making you both proud." LaShonda smiled. She locked up and stepped into the cool night. Streetlights reflected off pavement. She pulled the coat tight. She was warm, not just from the coat, from everything it represented. The circle was complete. But circles don't end. They just keep going. LaShonda Hayes gave away her coat in a blizzard. She didn't know it would lead to all of this. She didn't do it for recognition, didn't do it for reward. She did it because she saw someone who needed help, and she had something to give. Your act of kindness might not involve a billionaire. It might not go viral. It might not make the news. But it might save someone's day, someone's hope, someone's belief that good people still exist. Diane Hayes saved a little boy. LaShonda saved his father. Now that kindness is saving an entire community. What coat are you wearing today? Who needs it more? If this story reminded you that small acts create big ripples, share it. Let it spread. Hit like if you believe kindness matters. Subscribe for more stories of everyday heroes doing extraordinary things. And remember, you might be someone's miracle today. Don't miss it.
At Black Voices Uncut, we don't polish away the pain or water down the message. We tell it like it is because the truth deserves nothing less. If today's story spoke to you, Click like, join the conversation in the comments, and subscribe so you'll be here for the next Uncut Voice.